So we've been hanging out for a while, and I think by now I know what you want. True nurse ghost stories. And I've got them. Well, hello, spookies. If you are new to this channel, I'm Silky. That's Scully, my co-host, although he doesn't say a whole lot. And we do all kind of paranormal stuff, but tonight I have got the thing that you love the most, which is the true nurse, hospital, whatever ghost stories. Oh, and here comes Sachi. I know you love her too. Hello, Sach. Say hello. Yes, I'm in my pajamas. I'm actually working on some more bedtime stories, and those will be coming out on Sunday. Scully, he loves them. But let's jump into what you've been waiting for. Now, remember, these come from a private group, so I can't share the names, but I will share your stories with your names when I get to those. Okay, this one says I've worked as a surgery scrub assist for 29 years. One day, as I was scrubbed in on an open heart, I felt someone poke my back with their finger, as if to get my attention. I assumed it was my circulating RN. When I turned to look, she was in the anteroom, so it wasn't her. Honestly, I wasn't frightened, just confused. Where it got weird for me? That patient never came off pump and passed away on the table. Then I got a little shiver. I always wondered if he wasn't just trying to say he was out of there and thanks for trying. Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess he was just like poking you on the back. Hey, thanks. Good job. You made a good effort, but deuces. I mean, I don't know. Is that what he was saying? That is so weird. What do y'all think? While working in the ICU, I was assigned a patient who was actively dying, comfort care. So at this point, no medical interventions were indicated. As I was getting report, I could directly see into the room, and in doing so, could see several shadow figures. I prematurely stopped the report because I knew death was imminent. Within a couple more minutes, the patient passed peacefully. I found comfort while giving postmortem care that this soul was surrounded by loved ones, that they were there to take them home. Yeah, we usually don't get the perks of seeing the shadow figures, but it is nice to know that you're not alone and that somebody is waiting for you. But look, during report, that is a little unnerving. Okay, I'm just going to say, could you wait just a minute? But then again, when it's time to go, you're not worried about what anybody else is doing. So I kind of get it. Thanks, Anonymous, for sharing that story. An elderly friend told me that when he was in the hospital, the night nurse came over to him as he lay in bed. She asked him if he was okay. What? He said he was, but why had she asked? She said that she was sat at her desk and noticed that a figure had come out of the wall and got into bed with my mate. He said he hadn't noticed anything. Okay, y'all know how I feel about this. These ghosts have crossed the line. Don't be getting into bed with me. Okay? I sleep alone. Well, that's not true. Sachi Sachi is always there with me. But look, these ghosts, they are not welcome. Hospital bed, whatever. I mean, you can sit in the chair, okay? There is no need to cuddle. No ghost cuddling. That is weird and creepy, and I would ask for another room, to be honest with you. I think I'd say I'm done here, right? But what would you do if a ghost crawled into bed with you? I mean, I'm just curious. I met a nurse who told me this story. She was working in a hospital in the NHS, which had a wing attached that was for private patients. One night, two patients had heart attacks, one lady in the private wing and the other man in the NHS part. The crash teams were called and worked hard for 10 minutes on each patient. Unfortunately, the man died, but the lady was revived. When she was able to talk, she said, rather annoyingly, Why did you bring me back? I was having a lovely chat in the corridor with Mr. Brown. This lady went on to tell the staff all about Mr. Brown, his family, etc. The pair had never met in real life, but had an intense chat in the afterlife. Well, I guess it's never too late to make a new friend, right? So, were they planning to go somewhere? Like, why did you bring me back? Did she want to, kind of continue this conversation in the great beyond with Mr. Brown? I don't know, but it does make you wonder, especially since she didn't have any prior knowledge of his family and stuff, but she knew all about him. That is creepy. And so, ladies, look, there you go. There's your proof. Never give up hope. You might meet Mr. Right on your exit. Who knows? Anything's possible, right? Now, this was submitted by Anonymous. That's how you know it's a nurse. It was a relief to graduate from nursing school, I'll say. It was an even greater relief to pass my boards. Now the next stop was to find a job. I had applied to several hospital and clinic positions with no luck. Desperate to find a full time position, I came across a job at a nursing home. It was not my ideal job, but it was a job. As they say, you have to start somewhere. I got hired as an RN working NOC shift. It was basically me and two aides working on the NOCs. The nurses' station is set up in the center of the facility with three wings branching off. It was around 2 a.m., and both of the aides that I was working with were heavy smokers, so they both stepped outside for a cigarette. I was sitting by the nurse's station, charting away. I was sitting where I faced towards the middle wing. It was a wing that had been closed off. No residents resided in those rooms. There were a few rooms down that hall that were used for meetings and in services, but that was about it. After charting for a while, I looked up and saw this very lean, tall, dark man standing at the end of the hallway. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew it was a man. My heart started racing. I felt sick to my stomach, and my hands started shaking. I knew what I had seen. I was too terrified to look up again, so I turned away and never looked down that wing again for the rest of the night. That was my first encounter in a nursing home. Well, I'd say that was a pretty good one. The second experience happened late one evening. The PM nurse had told me that one of the CNAs told her someone had passed away and if I could go and assess. I could not find any aides to go with me, so I summoned the courage to go in by myself. The lady was sitting in her recliner. When I walked in, I could tell that she had passed away. Her skin was pale and her chest was not rising. As I was making my way to confirm and check to make sure there was no pulse, something quickly ran past me. It was so quick and fast. I never made out exactly what it was, but I saw it. I started getting goosebumps, but it was part of the job. So I felt for a pulse and there was none. I left the room as quickly as possible. Yeah, I get it. Stuff running by you, no. I mean, at least it's not touching you, though. It could be worse. I mean, come on, we've heard worse. There was this female resident who was bedridden and all her extremities were contracted. She was basically dependent on staff for all cares and could not move around. She couldn't feed herself or even use the call light to call for help. Now, this resident would frequently scream in terror, crying out that there were men in her room. Sometimes visitors who didn't know any better would think she was possessed. Of course, one of her diagnoses was schizophrenia, so we didn't think much of it. We would try to calm her down by turning the TV or music on, giving her books to read, distracting her with activities. But nothing seemed to work. We would try to explain to her that there was no one in her room, but she would always respond with, "They are at the edge of my bed," which at first seemed scary, but after a while you get used to it. Very true. It got worse. No amount of distraction or medications would calm her down. She continued to scream in terror until she passed away. Oh my gosh, that is horrible. The night after she passed away, I was working. Two CNAs and I were sitting by the CNA station, which was located near her room. All of a sudden, the call light outside of her room turned on. The room was still empty at this point. We all looked at each other. Being the supervisor, I did not want to say anything that would scare the girls. So I calmly replied with, must be an electrical problem. Yeah, that's what you always have to say. One of the younger girls quickly said, I am not going in there by myself. The other CNA walked into the room and turned the call light off. We didn't say anything about it until later on that night. I came out of the staff room and saw the light was on again. I freaked out a little and got goosebumps. But then I thought one of the CNAs must be playing a trick. I went and found the girls, and they were both doing care on another resident. I asked them if they had noticed that the call light is on again. Both of them answered no. Nothing showed up on their pagers that the call light was on. Oh, wow. That was when I started getting scared. Anytime someone puts the call light on, it sends a page to the CNA pagers. This would be the second time now that this has happened. One of the girls then mentioned that call light has never been used or turned on. The resident that had lived in there could not physically push on the call light button. Okay, so I see why they didn't turn it on. She couldn't use it. But now after she passed away, it has been turning on. Let's just say for the rest of the night, we avoided walking near that room. Yeah, that is definitely creepy. Was she making up for lost time all the time she wanted to call and she couldn't, physically reach the button or push the button? Is she going to like put it on incessantly now? Like, yeah, for all the times I needed somebody and I couldn't call, I could see me doing that. Like, just pushing the button over and over, just kind of to get it out of your system, right? But yeah, I see why you avoided that room for sure. Hi, I never posted anything about my experience with supernatural stuff, but recently I've been having weird experiences. Just to be clear, I love good spooky stories, but never really believed that there is anything beyond. I'm not religious or superstitious, just plain Jane nurse working in a big hospital in London. Usually I work night shifts because they are not so busy and dramatic as day shifts. I've been working like that for years and never ever seen anything weird, except maybe a few patients. But that is a different story. We all have those patients. Jane, plain Jane from London. Yeah. We have probably the living are sometimes scarier than the dead. Anyway, a few weeks ago, I picked up a shift in a new ward. It was a place designated for elderly patients, all of whom were not mobile anymore and required a lot of extra effort. I was assigned to the bay for the night, got the handover, and started usual work. All my patients were females, all very calm and easygoing, cooperative, no fussing. Lucky, I thought, this shift will be smooth. Y'all know, never say that, never think that. But one of the ladies did not speak any English, so I had to ask one of the nurses to translate so I could communicate with this patient. Hours went by and my bae was fast asleep, and I sat down in one of the armchairs by the patient bed. I was sitting next to a non English speaking lady. I was observing monitors of my patients and doing notes when I got cold chills. Then suddenly something wet. What? When suddenly something wet landed on my arm, and I turned into the direction from where it came, and my patient was lying there silently, just staring into my eyes. The only light was coming from the patient's monitoring equipment, so the room was quite dark. She said something in her language in such a way that I got goosebumps. At the same time, she was still spilling her cold coffee on me. Because I didn't understand her sudden change in behavior, I ran for the nurse that spoke her language and asked her to help me with calming her down. She spoke to my patient, and I could only read from my colleague's facial expression that what she heard was something else from what we were experiencing. So I asked the nurse what my patient said, and she replied that my lady was spilling the coffee on me because of the ghost. What? That was standing. Wait. Okay, hold on. Because of the ghost that was standing next to me was asking for something to drink. What? The ghost wants something to drink. Okay. For a moment that felt like an eternity, we just stayed in silence and tried to digest what we just heard. As I said, I do not believe in life after death, but this was something that stuck in my head for the past few weeks. Okay, again, I have questions. Are we going to get thirsty and hungry in the afterlife? Because if you're following my shorts about my house, you know I have food missing all the time and in unexplainable ways. So, am I going to be hungry? And do we gain weight? Like, do we still have to diet in the afterlife? Because I'm done with this. I'm just done. I just don't even care anymore. And I certainly don't want to be thirsty or cold. Now, I would love to have a good steaming cup of coffee by choice, but really, I'm thinking that when we cross over, we're done with all this, but apparently not. There's a ghost standing behind you or beside you who's thirsty. I guess the ghost wanted some coffee too, for which I cannot blame them. Okay, all right, that would be me. But that is really horrifying to think. I mean, not the ghost. We hear a lot of those stories, but what is the afterlife? And I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with all this. All right, that's the last story I have for right now, but I have some more true nurse ghost stories coming up. And y'all, your letters, I haven't forgotten you, okay? I've gotten some letters. I'm going to do that soon. And some more bedtime stories that I'm working on. So I hope you are enjoying this. And Scully says, remember to give the thumbs up if you like this video. And if you're not subscribed, you know, I kind of wish you would. I do this all the time. All right. I hope you have a great night, a great week. Be careful out there. But whatever you do, just stay spooky. Bye bye.